Hey there, and welcome back to the Crystal Domain. Now, today we're going to be talking about some Final Fantasy Commander, particularly the Counter Blitz Precon for Final Fantasy X, and we're going to upgrade it. We're going to remove some cards. We're going to add some new cards, and we are doing this only with Final Fantasy cards as the upgrade targets. Now, before we get into that, just if you want to support the channel, leave a like down below, comment your thoughts at the end down below about what you would add to the deck or cards that you would cut instead if you think I cut something that should stay in the deck. And of course, subscribe to the channel as we forever encroach 500 subs is our goal. And then, of course, beyond that, we'll keep growing. But, you know, the goal right now, the goal post is 500 subs. But more importantly than that, your time watching these videos is the most important way of you supporting the channel, and I appreciate your support. Now, if we're going to be fully transparent, um, this is by far my least favorite of the precons. I covered the FF7 one previously, which I do enjoy the idea of that one, where after seeing this one played a couple times, I really don't like what this one was doing. It's just Bant Counters. It's boring. It's got some cool ideas in the fact that it, um, like, Tidus does something new to move counters around and things like that. But we're moving this in a different direction for something that I'm going to find a little more entertaining. And instead, we're fully changing the commander. And therefore, this will be a larger upgrade and removal to switch out what we're doing in this deck. So let's get acquainted with our commander, which is Yuna Grand Summoner. She is one colorless and then Bant colors for a 1/5 with Grand Summon. You can tap her and add 1 mana of any color, and when you next cast a creature spell this turn, that creature enters with 2 additional 1/1 counters on it. Whenever another permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, if it had 1 or more counters on it, you may put that number of 1/1 counters on target creature. Regardless of the counters, you convert them into 1/1 counters to the next thing, which is pretty cool. So I enjoy this more as the commander target, simply because it is a mana dork in the command zone. A little more consistency for getting out cards better, but also it allows me to change the strategy to be more thematic to Yuna, and that we are going to be turning this more into a summons deck, so we're running more of the enchantment creatures that are new to this set, and removing some of the more generic, boring um, counter crap that was added in the main deck. So let's start talking about the cards we are adding. Obviously, we're adding Blitzball. This is a 3 colorless artifact with the ability to add 1 mana of any color, and then you can sacrifice it to draw 2 cards, but you can activate it only if an opponent was dealt damage this turn by a legendary creature. This is a great mana rock. Um, this is simply Power Crept Commander Sphere, which, like, it is funny that they printed literal Commander Sphere in the Terra FF6 precon, and then like right next to it, I'm like, all right, I know it's not FF6, Blitzball's Final Fantasy X, but like it's a power, it's right there. Like I'm obviously going to use that card. Um, but yeah, Blitzball, great mana rock. I know some people are not a fan of 3-drop mana rocks, but I like this one, and is going to help with our colors, and then also later we'll draw us cards, which is quite cool. Capital City is one of the new town lands of this set. You can tap it for a colorless, you can tap 1 and tap it for a mana of any color, or you can cycle it. So good card advantage, but also the ability to get some colors that we need. Clash of the Icons is a 1 green sorcery that you can choose 1 or more of its modes. You can make a creature you control fight something, that the opponent controls. Good removal. You can remove a lore counter from a Saga you control, or you could put a lore counter on a Saga you control. Removing the counter does not cause chapter abilities to trigger, is the important note. But also putting a lore counter on it will mean that you can retick a new mode on the Saga, which is quite cool. Combat Tutorial is a 3-drop sorcery that allows a player to draw 2 cards and put a counter on up to 1 target creature you control. Simple, but it does do our job of we want counters on things, and we also want to be keeping up our card advantage. Esper Origins. 2-drop sorcery, Surveil 2, gain 2. If the spell was cast from the graveyard instead, you exile it, then put it onto the battlefield transformed under its owner's control with a finality counter on it, and then it's got flashback. Then on the flip side, it is Esper Meduin, a 4/4 elemental saga with no abilities other than the saga abilities. For the first one, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you put it into your hand. You add 2 green mana on Chapter 2. And then on Chapter 3, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and trample until end of turn, which could be a good way to close out a game, or at least get some good advantage in on some good damage. Garnet, Princess of Alexandria, is a Selesnya legendary creature with lifelink and is 2/2. Whenever Garnet attacks, you may remove a lore counter from each of any number of sagas you control. Put a 1/1 counter on Garnet for each lore counter removed this way. I do like this one because it does fit our strategy of getting 1/1 counters on creatures, and also to remove lore counters from sagas to either bypass chapters we don't need, or to get them quicker into the graveyard to where we can recur them later. We have Guado Solemn Far Plain Gateway. This is just the Simic town for some better mana fixing over some of the regular lands that were added into the deck. We have Ishgard the Holy Sea. This is the white town that has 2 sides. It will either enter tapped and add 1 white mana, or on the adventure side, Faith and Grief for 5 mana and a sorcery. You return up to 2 target artifact and or enchantment cards from your graveyard to your hand, which is excellent recursion. Then we have Ride the Shupoof. This is a 2 mana green enchantment with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. And then for 7 mana, this enchantment becomes a 7/7 beast in addition to its other types, which is pretty good. You could make this guy big and then landfall and put counters on it, and the counters will stay. And then when it becomes a beast again, you will have a larger beast than before, which is quite cool. Otherwise, though, this is just good consistency for getting counters across the board, which this deck wants to do. Then we have Rydia's Return. This is a 5-drop sorcery that reads, you choose one of its modes. Either creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn, or return up to 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. Good recursion for our Saga Creatures, and also good damage enabling by buffing up our board massively. Summon Bahamut is a colorless 9-drop 9/9 flying Saga Dragon that has 4 chapters. The first 2 chapters destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. The 3rd chapter draws 2 cards. And the 4th chapter, Mega Flare, deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents you control to each opponent. That can close out a game. Good removal and card advantage, which is quite nice. And then recurable in this deck, which is even stronger. Summon Choco Mog is a 3-drop Saga Bird Moogle with no abilities and is a 3/3, other than its 4 chapters that all do the same thing. Other creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Simple, basic, but gets the job done. Buffs the board, and enables early damage if found early. Summon Fat Chocobo is a 5-drop 4/4 Saga Bird with only its chapter abilities. Chapter 1 is you Wark. You create a 2/2 green bird creature token with whenever a land you control enters. The token gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And then chapters 2, 3, and 4 are all the same. Kerplunk. Creatures you control gain trample until end of turn. Good keyword enabling and could lead to a win later on in the game, or again, as we've talked about, early advantage in getting some decent damage in through giving our creatures keywords while giving them a number of 1/1 counters to help run over the opponent. Summon Fenrir. This is a 3-drop, 3/2 Saga Wolf with 3 chapters. Chapter 1, Crescent Fang, searches your library for a basic land, puts it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Heaven's Word Howl, Chapter 2, is whenever you next cast a creature spell this turn, that creature enters with an additional 1/1 counter on it. And then lastly, Chapter 3, Ecliptic Growl, draws you a card if you control the creature with the greatest power or tied for the greatest power. So we have ramp, we have what we're doing, where we want to cast creatures and put counters on them, and we are drawing cards. All good things. Next, we have Summon Good King Mog the 12th, a 5-drop, 4/4 Saga Moogle with flying and lifelink, and 4 chapters. Chapter 1 creates 2 1/2 white Moogle creature tokens with lifelink. Chapters 2 and 3 are whenever you cast a non-creature spell this turn, create a token that's a copy of a non-Saga token you control. And then Chapter 4 is put 2 1/1 counters on each other Moogle you control. So we're going wide with some Moogles, getting some Moogles going. Then they get big, and they're already getting big from other stuff in play. And we're getting good lifelink going. We got some good stuff, on top of we're duping those tokens with its other 2 Saga abilities, and then we're going wide with little cute guys, and we love that. Then we have Knights of Round. This is a 8-drop, 3/3 indestructible Saga Knight with 5 chapters. The first 4 chapters all just simply create 3 2/2 white knight creature tokens. And then Chapter 5, Ultimate End. Other creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Put an indestructible counter on each of them. Then, with this deck, we can distribute indestructible counters to other more viable targets beyond those tokens, which is quite nice. Also a good way to close out a game with how powerful our board will be with all those knights. Then we have Summon Primal Garuda, a 4-drop, 3/3 flying Saga Harpy with 3 chapters. Chapter 1, Aerial Blast, deals 4 damage to a tapped creature an opponent controls. Chapters 2 and 3, Slipstream. Another target creature you control gets +1/+0 and flying until end of turn. Good keyword use, good buff, and also removal in the first chapter is quite good. Then we have Summon Shiva. This is a 5-drop, 4/5 Saga Elemental with 3 chapters. The first 2 chapters, Heavenly Strike, tap down a creature an opponent controls and puts a stun counter on it, which can be proliferated and then distributed amongst people's stuff, which is quite funny. And then Chapter 3, Diamond Dust, draws you a card for each tapped creature your opponent controls, which is quite good. If we're tapping down people's stuff, and then also we are, coincidentally, somebody swings out, then Mode 3 is going to draw us a lot of cards. Summon Titan is a 5-drop, 7/7 reach and trample Saga Giant with 3 chapters. The first chapter mills 5 cards. The second chapter returns all land cards from graveyard to the battlefield tapped, which can be excellent if we get the top end of this mill. And then Chapter 3, until end of turn, another target creature you control gains trample and gets +X/+X, where X is the number of lands you control. This could also close out a game. You could give this to your commander if you wanted to swing with her. You probably won't, but just, it is an option. Summoner's Grimoire is a 4-drop artifact equipment with job select. So on play, it will bring out a colorless hero attached to the equipment. The equip cost is 3, and then the equipped creature is a shaman in addition to its other types, and has whenever this creature attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. If that card is an enchantment card, it enters tapped and attacking. This is an excellent way of bypassing that most of these will not have haste, due to we are not in the colors for giving these Saga enchantments haste. However, this is a good way to bypass that, and is an excellent way to cheat out good monsters. So absolutely should be running this in this deck. Very flavorful as well, due to Yuna being a summoner. Then we have the Earth Crystal. This is a 4-drop legendary artifact that reduces the green spells we cast by 1. And then if one or more 1/1 counters would be put on a creature you control, twice that many counters are put on that creature instead. So we have an in-house token doubler, which is quite nice. And then for 6 mana, you can tap it and distribute 2 1/1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures you control. Probably not doing that bottom ability too much, but that top ability for the cost reduction and also doubling our counters is excellent. Then we have World Map. This is a 1-drop artifact that has 2 abilities. You can either tap 1 and sack it to search your library for a basic land, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. Or you could tap 3, tap it, and sack it to search your library for any land card, reveal it, and put it in your hand and then shuffle. This is a great way of getting out very specific towns in this deck, which is quite good. But also, just any land is also nice for later on in the game. Then we have Yuna, Hope of Spira. This is a 5-drop, 3/5 legendary human cleric with, during your turn, Yuna and enchantment creatures you control have Trample, Lifelink, and Ward 2. So we're just given all the buffs to this. And then at the beginning of your end step, return up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, which we can then move to something else. So then we can repeat the sagas and reanimate them and give them good keywords. This card is very powerful and is an excellent fit alongside Precon Yuna to help synergize with our powerful summons that we want to put onto the battlefield. Then our last card for the upgrade portion before we go to the cards we're cutting is Xanarkand, Ancient Metropolis. This is the green town that either enters tapped and adds a green mana to your mana pool, or Lasting Faith, 6-drop sorcery adventure. The adventure half will create a colorless 1/1 hero token. It puts a 1/1 counter on it for each land you control. Excellent for what we want to do with this deck. So now that we've gone over the upgrade portion, has a clear goal in mind of maintaining that we are adding counters to things, but that we are also, adding in a number of summons to fit the flavor of Yuna being the commander. Now let's go over the cards to cut. And in equal measure, we have a lot of cards to cut. We have Altered Ego. It is an X cost, but then 2 and Simic for a shapeshifter that cannot be countered. You may have it enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with X additional counters on it. I kind of just don't care about this. It goes in some other deck to me. This just goes somewhere else, in my opinion. An offer you cannot refuse. This is a great card. I don't like the idea of counterspells being available in this deck, so I cut this card. It is a great card. It probably should stay. I don't like how boring this deck is, and therefore I do not want it to actually have the ability to, do all of the things. It's already annoying how good it is at putting out counters, and it's just boring in that it's protecting itself and distributing shield counters and indestructible, and then just trampling over everybody else. And the ability to then also protect yourself with, counters and other things like that, no thanks. I want to weaken this deck a little bit. I am that mean to myself when playing it. Ash Barrens, I'm not big on just its colorless or basic land cycling. This could be a better land. Bane of Progress becomes a bit of a nombo in this deck with how much we're adding in the enchantment Saga Creatures to buff up our strategy. Even though the card is good, and it does, board wipe people's artifacts and enchantments, and we can recur them ourselves, technically, but I think it's a bit of a nombo. Chasm Skulker is just a boring card. You draw, you put counters on it, and then when it dies, you get a bunch of squids. I don't care. Just get rid of it. Collective Effort is a 3-drop sorcery with Escalate. You could tap an untapped creature you control, and then it will add on modes, or it pays the cost for each mode chosen. So if you want all 4 modes, or all 3 modes, you tap down additional creatures, and then it will destroy a creature with power 4 or greater, destroy an enchantment, or put a counter on each creature target player controls. I just didn't feel the need to have this level of removal in the deck when we already have removal. and I wanted to focus in more on it doing the summons instead of like being versatile. So I did make it more one lane, but that's intentional with how boring the deck is. Endless Detour is a Bant instant that the owner of target spell, non-land permanent, or card in a graveyard puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of their library. I kind of just don't really think this does anything here. This could go somewhere else. Everflowing Chalice is a mana rock with multi-kicker, and then it adds a mana for each charge counter on the artifact. The important note is that you can proliferate these charge counters. This gets a little bit silly. It is good. I just didn't want this rock in this deck to then have to buff it, and then it becomes like actually good. So I took it out. Generous Patron is a 3-drop elf advisor that when it enters, you support 2, which is that you put a counter on each of up to 2 target other creatures. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature you don't control, draw a card. Not all the time we're going to be doing this, so I took it out for the main ability up top is not that useful, and the bottom ability is a bit narrow, so I cut the card. Kamari, Valiant Guardian, is a cat with 3/3 and Vigilance, and Ronso Rage. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you put a counter on it, and then tap target creature and opponent controls. Then you may have Kamari become a copy of that creature, and I don't care about this card. Lord Jiscal Guado is a 2-drop flying spirit that at the beginning of each end step, if you put a counter on a creature this turn, investigate. I don't see the necessity for clue tokens in this deck. It's just a bit slow. It's just a clue. This could be card draw. This could be more power. It could be better. So it's gone. Overflowing Basin, I don't like the filter lands. Well, more particularly, I don't like the ones that you tap a colorless or any mana to then tap to get 2 mana. This is an Arcane Signet. Or not Arcane Signet. This is a Guild Signet, but worse. Like, at least the artifact contributes to something, where this is just a land. I don't like these lands. Path of Discovery, whenever creature you control enters, it explores. Okay. We have better counter generation than this. So, it can be ramp or card advantage in that you get the lands to hand, but, like, so what? Just draw the cards. Promise of Loyalty is a board wipe I cut from this deck because I just didn't think it needed like 4 board wipes. So it's gone. For those that don't know what it does, each player puts a Vow counter on a creature they control. They sack the rest, and then each of those creatures cannot attack you or planeswalkers you control for as long as it has a Vow counter on it. This card is good. It belongs in a different deck. Because also, like, you can clone the Vow counters and then move them around, and I don't care to do that. No thanks. Pool from Tomorrow is an X-cost blue spell that you draw X cards and discard a card. We don't really need this kind of, like, mana dump type cards, where I feel like they add these for the idea that you're in a game where you draw into, like, you're in a board state that isn't doing a lot, so you need something to do, so you just drop, like, a bajillion mana to draw out a bunch of your deck and then discard a card. That way you get, like, a better card out of it. There's better card advantage in this deck than this, and you don't need this. Sin Unending Cataclysm is a giant Leviathan 5/5 flying trample for 7 mana. That as it enters, you remove all counters from any number of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, and then it enters with X1 counters on it, where X is twice the number of counters removed this way. And then when it dies, you put its counters on target creature you control, then shuffle this card into its owner's library. This belongs in, like, a different deck. This card's neat. I get where it belongs in this deck. I don't want it in this deck. I'm going to move it to something else. Also, because it is a lot of mana for a guy that you could be more cost efficient than a 7-drop in this case. Same thing as before. This is the white-blue version of this crappy Signet land. Get out. Same thing with Sungrass Prairie. Get out. Sunscorched Regent is a 5-drop dragon with flying. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you put a counter on this creature and gain a life. Who cares? This could be a better creature. This could be a saga that's more interesting. And the life gain is minimal when we have better life gain built in, so it's gone. Temple of the False God sucks. If you don't have the lands for this, it does nothing. And I'd rather it be a land that does something. Tireless Tracker, landfall, you get a clue, and then when you sack a clue, it gets a counter. This requires you to have it, and the other card that gives you clues. If you're not getting clues, this does nothing. I get that you can put counters on it yourself through other cards, and of course landfall, you're going to be getting clues. But if you're not sacking the clues to a different outlet to avoid the cost, it's just like bad card advantage. And no, this doesn't really. Great card for a different deck. Again, easy cut. Take it from here, put it somewhere else. Together Forever. This is like the second time we've seen a kiss on a Magic card, I think. 2 white. When it enters, support 2. And then tap 1, choose target creature with a counter on it. When that creature dies this turn, return that card to its owner's hand. I cut this purely so it has less means of surviving. I want this to be intentionally glass cannon. That way, it does not just survive and win the game off of just being annoyingly durable. And I have already complained about the deck enough. I don't like Bant Counters, but I want to talk about the Final Fantasy Precons and their fullness, so I'm going to talk about why I just don't enjoy this deck. And I'm going to cut the cards that make it annoying to deal with. That way it is glass cannon. It might win you a game. It also might get blown out, and that's okay. I've chosen its fate for that. It will survive to play another game and maybe win that one. I do not need this to just endure forever. And so it's gone. Alright, let's see. Where did we leave off? We got 2 cards left to cut. Next, we're cutting Tromel, Seymour's Butler. This is a 3-drop. Another Elf Advisor, 2/3. Each other non-token creature you control enters with additional counter on it, and then you can tap 1 and tap it to proliferate X times, where X is the number of non-token creatures you control that entered this turn. I get where this card is like a high ceiling and like the base deck where you got like Chasm Skulker and then you got some other stuff going on. But for me, I was like, no thank you. I don't need this. It's gone. This could go somewhere else. And we cut Walking Ballista, that way there would not be an infinite combo built into a Precon. For those that are not aware, Walking Ballista and Waka, and I believe Gata and Luzu equals a infinite combo. And I think it's wild that only one of the 4 decks has an infinite combo built in. So it's gone. We're not dealing with that. Alright. And that is the end of the upgrade. Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below about what cards you would add or what cards you would cut. And of course, if I'm wrong, you can just yell at me in the comments. It's also fine. In the meantime, I will see you guys in the next video where we will probably cover another Precon. Or maybe some Yu-Gi-Oh! If you're into that. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.